everyone. I'm Bridget Peoples, and today I have with me Kristin Butler, near-death experiencer, and I'm super excited to introduce her and share her story, as this is the first time she's willing to talk about her experiences in public. So I'm so grateful and honored that she chose me to do that with, and also that she's sharing her light in the experience, because there's so many people out there that are terrified of death and what that looks like, and that they don't really believe there's life after death. Even though as a medium I bring in validation all the time for people, it still is nice to get firsthand accounts for someone who has actually been there and come back. So thank you, Kristin, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So please, in 2017, you had a near-death experience. I'd love for you to tell us what happened.
Okay, well, I didn't actually go to the hospital, so I didn't code or anything, but I had all of the effects of a near-death experience. I did not know at the time that's what it was. It took me about a year later to find a near-death experience group and realize, oh, I'm not crazy. This is actually something, I knew it was something profound, and I knew it was something that was very real. And it was very hard for me at first, because a lot of people I told, they were like, no, you were just dreaming. No, you were just crazy. No, you're this. No, you're that. And so I started journaling, a lot of journaling. And then I came across the near-death experiences group that I'm a part of, and it blew my doors off. I was like, this is exactly what happened to me. And it was so liberating to know that there were so many other people that had experienced things just as I did. Maybe not particularly in the same way, but the experience with the light and the love and all those feelings that you get during that experience was very, very comforting to me. And I feel like it was a godsend, like it was the spirit pushing me in that way, saying, see, look, this really did happen to you, and to share my light with others. So what happened with me was, I say that my near-death experience almost killed me, but it saved my life. I had been suffering from a severe dental infection for almost 2 years. I had a 3-year-old child at the time, and I'm a single mom. And so I didn't have any help with him. And what happened to me was, I was helping a friend work on their trailer, like on their fifth wheel. And I was wearing flip-flops, and I lost my footing, and I stepped on a really thick drinking glass, but it lacerated my foot about 2 to 3 inches.
Feel it.
And yeah, it was pretty crazy. And I started losing blood pretty quickly. So I found something to wrap my foot, and I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll be okay. And no, I started feeling very woozy, very lightheaded, almost like I just wanted to go to sleep. So I called the ambulance, and they came out, and they were like, well, we can't transport you with your son. And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do then? And they said, you need to get to the hospital as soon as possible. And I was like, okay. So they did wrap my foot, but I was still bleeding. I was bleeding through the bandages. My last like clear type memory of that was I was sitting on the front porch watching my son play in the dirt, and the sun had been kind of setting, and it felt like it was going to be the last time. I'm getting choked up. It felt like it was going to be the last time I would ever see the sunset. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. Yeah. And I was watching my son play in the dirt, and just, I was like, it's hard, really hard to explain. Well, then later on in the evening, I guess it was whenever I went to sleep with my son next to me, because I couldn't get anybody to come help me with him. And I remember praying that I would just make it through the night. And at some point, I was outside of my body, and I actually had a hellish experience at first. So I was hearing screams and torment of souls. And it was very terrifying because I didn't know what was going on. And I could feel it in my soul. It was more painful than the cut to my foot, than the infection in my mouth. it was so painful. And the screams just like shattered me to my soul.
Yeah.
And I remember calling out to God and saying, it's promised that you would never leave me nor forsake me, God. And right after that, I felt it was almost like a hand reaching down and grabbing me by my collar, and straight up I went, and the light exploded, and I was just overflowed and filled with love, with so much love. That's also whenever I experienced my life review. It was pretty instantaneous. It was like telepathic, where I was shown very clearly other instances in my life, shown my life completely. I actually was also shown that I had planned this life. I had been with a council of elders planning my life here. And I was then in, like, I would almost say like a waiting room. I don't know how to explain it because I don't know if it's a waiting room per se.
Right.
But you right. It didn't say waiting room on
Right.
the front of it. But I was in this area of just waiting while I was I don't know if it was a download of my life, of all everything. And sometimes it's very hard to find the terminology in words here whenever I'm back to explain it the correct way. And there's so many words that could be used interchangeably with the experience that it's really wonderful as well. But there was like a discussion of not, I wouldn't say what to do with me, but my life and the way I was and who I was and what I had come here to accomplish. And it was decided that it was not my time. And I was sent back, and I was slammed with such force into my body that I woke up next to my son. And I didn't have any like fatigue. I felt awake. I felt fully present. I was still in my foot was in a lot of pain. I actually went that morning to the hospital to have my foot checked out because I finally had somebody there to take care of my son for a little bit. And I went to an urgent care, and they actually transported me to the hospital. And whenever I went to the hospital, I went to the ER, and they told me they couldn't stitch it because it was after 8 hours. Whenever they told me that, I had already been in the waiting room there for a while. And when they told me they wasn't going to be able to do anything like that, I said, well, I'm not going to be admitted, even though I probably should have been. I probably needed a blood transfusion. I refused to be admitted because I couldn't spend any more time away from my toddler son, who I had gotten, a call saying he won't stop crying. You really need to come back. And so it was like, it was either stay there for hours more or go back to my son and deal with him. And so that's what I did. And it took me, afterwards, I was in a state of, I felt like I had one foot here and one foot in the spiritual realm. I didn't feel like I was fully here, but I felt so full of light and love, and I felt connected to everyone and everything, that it was very overwhelming for me. And I felt guided by spirit after that to get someplace safe, find a place to recoup. And I actually was guided to get a blessing from my church, because I was, like I said, I was halfway here and halfway there. And my NDE experience happened in November of 2017. In January of 2018 is whenever I was spiritually guided to receive a blessing. And that actually, I guess, put both my feet back here on the physical realm. And I was no longer like back and forth and hearing spiritual things. And I don't want to say hearing voices, because it wasn't like hearing voices. It wasn't like a mental issue. It was, I know that it was a spiritual thing that was going on.
Big difference.
Yes, it is a big difference.
Yes.
I'm actually a psychology major. So
nice. So
So I do know. And that's how I know that it was spirit that was guiding me, that I
Yeah.
was being guided by my spirit, and that it was spirits that I was hearing.
Yeah.
Uh, and that, but that kind of put both feet back here in the present, in the here and now. And I started getting better and better and better. And, I did have to recoup from all of that. And
Yes.
ever since then, because I was going to school before my incident, and I took a year off to heal and everything.
Oh,
But
yes.
before, I was averaging C's and B's in my coursework. Since
Mhm.
I've been back in 2018, I've gotten nothing but straight A's. So I know that I'm definitely spiritually guided to do the work in psychology as well. Um,
Yes.
that my experience with the light and crossing over will also help me help others. And so I'm very grateful to be alive. I know a lot of experiencers sometimes talk about missing the other side, or, if it's so grand and great over there, why would you ever want to come back? And my answer is because this life is a gift. It
Yes.
is a gift. Before my experience, I thought this life was hell. I thought that, I mean, I had a lifetime of trauma and
Mhm.
pain. I'd been abused as a child. I'd been abused as an adult. Um, and it was like, it all became clear
Yeah.
afterwards, that this life is a gift. I love being alive. I'm so joyful to be here. And I still feel so filled with that love and light from the other side, especially when I talk about it. I could feel it like welling up in me, and I feel like
I
it just
start getting
kind of,
teary because I can feel your emotions. So I'm like trying to fight back my tears as you're getting them. I'm like, okay, I'm feeling all this emotion, and it's so beautiful, just absolutely beautiful. How has it changed your life, would you say, as far as, because like, and I understand that I went through a lot of years of abuse as a child as well. My father was a very violent alcoholic. And so as a child, my psychic abilities were so intense because I had to know where he was at all times
right,
to avoid getting hit, and some of the
right,
traumas that my siblings had because they were older. And I just remember I always knew there was that telepathic voice, duck, or don't go
right,
today, we're getting caught. So we used to like to shoplift as kids just to see if we could get away with it. It was a game. I grew up in Southern Cal, so I would literally in front of a security guard just take it and put it in my back pocket with a smile, and just to see, and every
right,
time my friends would go, let's go shopping, that was our kind of little clue, I'd be like, nope, we're getting caught.
right.
But with you, I do see a lot of the trauma. So it's like very emotional. So it's like I can put myself in a white bubble here. How has it changed your relationships with others, and what type of work are you doing at this point? And is it a son?
Yes.
Your son.
Yeah.
Um, how has that relationship changed? Because I can imagine prior, because as moms, I have 4 kids, so I understand. As a mom, though, it's heartbreaking because we have to put our kids first, and then you have that death experience. And I will say I wasn't the best mom when my kids were young. I was 16 years old and didn't have a lot of experience. So
Wow.
a child having a child, and we had 4 between the 2 of us by the time we were 23. So
Wow.
being that young and having that many children, you're not always going to want to go up and do stuff and do things. So, and I'm sure you probably had some of those experiences as well. They're whining, you're a single parent, and you have no one to help you. I know how that feels. I really, really do. So it's like, how has that changed for you though? Because I know it has, that
Yes.
experience.
Yes, it has. I know before my experience, especially whenever I was dealing with the severe dental infection, and I was always angry,
Yeah.
I was always on edge. Plus, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic or complex post-traumatic stress disorder
Wow.
before my experience in 2016. And I was at that time, I was on my road of healing. I was really delving into myself and my own psyche and trying to kind of figure stuff out. But I was very angry. And so I was probably harder on my son than what I needed to be. Um, since my experience, I could take a step back
Mhm.
I mean, even before my experience, I had been practicing mindfulness, but it wasn't really sticking. It was really,
Oh,
really
yes.
hard to
Yes.
practice that and to have it actually work, I guess you could say. After my experience, I feel so much calmer. Um, I see my son as actually, I know that he is empathic as well.
Yep.
I never really realized that before my experience, but after my experience, I could see it in him. I could tell that he is influenced by the energies that are around us. And
Yes.
that's how I could tell. I mean, I've always been very empathic myself,
Yes.
but to see it in my son is like seeing a reflection of me, and
Mhm.
that, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to cry.
Yeah.
That makes me
I know.
want to work double hard in loving him, because whenever you are bombarded by the spirits around you and by the energies and frequencies of negative people around you, like, he
Mhm.
doesn't understand that's why he's
No.
jumping off the walls and bouncing off the walls and running into stuff and being
Mhm.
crazy. But I now understand that that is why. Before my
It's
experience, I did not know that. I just thought, okay, there's like something wrong with him. Not like wrong with him, but
right.
he
Yes.
either has autism or ADHD or something like that. And he still, exhibits those signs, but I see it more as he is very susceptible to spirit.
Yeah.
And so I try to keep things very calm around him.
Mhm.
Um, we listen to good music. We talk about things, and he's
Mhm.
only 6, so
Yeah.
he's still very young.
Yeah.
But I want him to know to trust his own feelings and to trust himself. That's my main goal right now, is to not tell him he's wrong for feeling the things that he feels, because
Right.
I want him to grow up and trust in those feelings, because they will protect him and lead
Mhm.
him in the right way once he gets older.
Absolutely. So with the experience and because of growing up the same way, I was a lot like your son. Everybody says, "Oh, you're ADHD." Yeah, I experience that, I guess, but I like you said, we feel the energies of other people. Like I can feel your emotions, I can feel your son's emotions just having the conversation. And so I work in a field where there's so many people and so many energies. Anymore, going to the grocery store sets me on edge. I'll be with people and I can feel the anxiety. I could feel the blood pressure going up. And I'll say, like my sister, for example, I'll say, it's going to be okay. Quit telling me that. But it's like, but it
I've learned how to
is.
ground. You got to learn how to ground yourself,
Yeah,
because,
you
and you
do.
got to know yourself completely. That's one thing I learned in my experience, is
Mhm.
how to trust myself and
Yep.
know when those are my emotions or
Yeah.
energy and when they're coming from outside of me.
Yes.
And to be able to be conscious of that and realize it in the moment and be like,
Mhm.
okay, I need to take a few deep breaths. I need to kind of remove myself or get outside of their energy field,
Mhm.
because I don't want them to kind of infect mine.
Right.
And so I do a lot of grounding and a lot of visualization of protection, um, to keep my aura, my energy field clear of those negative waves.
Isn't it, it's so important. Yeah, because I'll be in the car with them and I'll be like, oh gosh, and but I do a prayer every day. I actually did I typed up the prayer, put it on this really beautiful background and gave it to several of my coworkers because they all know what I do, even though in my professional world, we only talk about it behind the closed doors, because people would be shocked.
Right.
But I give them I encircle myself with the white light of God's divinity and protection, and so they have this. And so when they're really feeling stressed, they'll look over at the wall and be like, they'll breathe it through. Because we're dealing with so many, and we're all empathic and
Right.
everyone's psychic, but I think people just don't understand that or realize it. So a lot of the stuff, like your son, for example, being off the walls, it's because he's around all these energies that are affecting him. And at 6, you're right, you don't know how to do it. So it is our jobs. And my job now as a nana to protect the grandkids, and the baby of how do we keep that energy? How do we protect it? Luckily for me, both my kids, they're the oldest ones that have children. they know what I do and they know that their kids are psychic as well. And so at
Right.
least they're open to that and letting them, like we said, talk about their feelings, what they're experiencing, and those things. Because I wasn't able to do that as a kid. My kids, for the
Either.
part of their life, were not able to do it. So because I was too young to know the difference.
Well, see, with my youngest son, I knew that there was something spiritual with him because
Mhm.
even as a infant, not really infant, but almost like at least after 1 years old, I know that he could see spirits at that point, which I know a lot of babies and infants actually can. But I
Yes.
would watch him as I was like feeding him, and he would be looking up and he's looking around and watching him. And I'm like, I start looking and it's like I could feel them, but I
Yeah.
can't see them because once you get older, some people that part's
Yeah.
closed off. And so I knew from a very early age with him that he was in touch with the other
Yes.
side. And so um for me personally, my abilities came on due to trauma as a child because I had
Mine
to
too.
be able to feel the energy in the room to know
Mhm.
if it was safe to know. But that actually helped me along in my life,
Yes.
because
Me
now
as
I could
well.
walk into a room, or I could,
Mhm.
if I was going into a place, I could, it's like I just know. And it's like, okay, I know what's going to happen. I actually need to get out of here. I
Yep.
actually had an experience well, that I always thought it was very key even before my near death experience, but I
Uh-huh.
was shown in my near death experience just how key that experience
Oh,
was. And I had been in a place with some people that were not very good people.
yeah.
Um, and I was just kind of in survival mode. And I had accidentally touched a live nail on a big outdoor generator. And I remember it like my whole vision went black. On those old time photos where the person would be behind the camera and they'd go poof and it would be all black poof, with the
Yes.
black smoke. That's exactly what happened to me. And whenever my vision
Oh,
came back to me, I had like 7 people just staring at me in disbelief. And because I was still standing.
yeah.
And then right after that, I had somebody actually try again to electrocute me because I think they were so astounded by what had happened to me, and they were like,
Oh my
this
God.
they thought they were tripping. Well, they put one of those, it's called a stinger, and it heats up water, but they had put it in the bathtub, and they're like, oh, I heated you up a bath, would you, so that you can go relax. And I was like,
Oh my
wait,
God.
I'm like, that's not supposed to be in there. They're like, oh no, it's okay. It's just to heat up the water. But actually, you're supposed to take that out before you get in, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Well, I did not get in the water, but I
Good.
let them, I figured, okay, I'm just gonna let them whatever. And they left the room, and I stood there and I stared into the mirror, and I just got this feeling of I was not alone, not to get in the bathtub. And
Yeah.
so I used the sink, and I kind of like freshened up, you know, and I
Yeah.
was in there for a good 10 minutes with myself, just kind of
Mm.
connecting to, I guess, to source, to my guides, to
Yeah.
whoever or whatever it was, to my angels. And whenever I came out, I was upstairs and they were downstairs, and I could hear perfectly clear what they were planning. And so I started like kind of stomping around so that I knew I was outside of the bathroom.
Yeah.
And the guy comes running up the stairs, and he's like, he looks at me. He's like, did you get in the bath? And I'm like, oh yeah, thank you so much. It was very refreshing. I really appreciate it. And his jaw, I swear, his jaw like hit the floor. They were like, what? And I'm like, oh yeah, thank you. They're like, you really got in the bath? And finally I said, no, I'm not stupid. You know what I
Right.
mean? I did tell them, no, I'm not stupid. I didn't get in the bath. I know better.
Yeah.
And well, it was a little while after that, I was doing dishes downstairs, and there was a lot of activity going on around. And what I'd been hearing whenever I'd first came out of the bathroom was them planning on hurting me.
Yeah.
And like I said, they were whispering down there, but I felt like I could hear it. Like I was in the same room as what it felt like.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, all the activity stopped and only 3 people were there. And I heard this voice inside tell me, get out now.
Yeah.
And I did. I grabbed my stuff and I took off. I'm like, I'm leaving. And their jaws dropped then too. They were like, because
Yeah.
whenever you're in that, it was pretty much like, how did she know? And how did this? And then whenever I left, I did find out afterwards that, yeah, they had been planning to do some pretty horrible things to me. Why people would ever want to do that, I don't know. I can't say, but I'm so thankful to God and to my angels and the spirit that protected me,
Yeah.
and that I was open to listening to myself and my guides to keep me safe. That was an instance that was shown very clearly to me in my near-death experience in 2007.
Wow, it's amazing how often spirit intervenes in our lives, like I said, when I had asked spirit, I'm like, gosh, if I have an NDE, and then boom, 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 all the stuff starts flying towards me, and I'm like, oh, wow. You don't realize until you go through that experience. I did have an out of body experience, and this is probably the first time I'm talking about it publicly myself. I think it was in 1993, 94 is when the big Northridge earthquake happened. It was about a week before that. And I was in bed with my husband and we were asleep, and all of a sudden I'm awake. I'm at the foot of the bed and there's this man in my room. And I'm like, panic first hit me. And then he put his hand on, like, kind of like this on my left shoulder. And he just looked at me. He had long brown hair, a beard, beautiful brown eyes, great tan, and I'm like, and then all of a sudden this overwhelming sense of peace. And he's touching my husband's foot. The next thing I know, and if I think back now, he's touching my, then we're in front of my son, who's now 32. He touches his foot, same thing, and does this to me. And now that I think back, his arm must have been pretty long because my son was 3 at the time, but I had this overwhelming sense of peace. And then I woke up, I thrust open it back in bed. And I'm like, and I'm looking around and I cover my head because I'm terrified. I'm like, oh my God, there's a man in my apartment. And at that time, I was deathly afraid of men with beards because of an experience as a teenager when I was a runaway. And so it took me years to process, but I know now that was Jesus. And he was letting me know that my husband and my son were going to be okay. Something horrific was going to happen. And the Northridge quake happened about a week later. And wow. Very few people know. I've only shared this, like I said, with just a small group of people. And now at this point in my life, it's been, almost 30 years. That Northridge quake, they should have been on that freeway that collapsed. Wow. They should have been on the bottom layer of that freeway and it collapsed. But my son had spent the night with my mom at her house, and my husband was at my sister and brother-in-law's. So they were separate, or they would have been on that freeway. They would have left on time, but they didn't. It gives
me chills. So, I just got chills. That's amazing.
So that's amazing. It took a long time to realize, oh my God, that was out of body, and that's only because of the interviews and the research I'm doing now as a medium, because I'm like, where does this come from? And I've seen the light. I've tapped into other people going through horrific things and seen this amazing light. I can't even describe the color. It's kind of a yellowy gold, just beautiful light. And all I seen was lights, like people at the tips of their fingers. They were all of light, and they were over this young man as he was having surgery. And all I saw was like this room. And I remember his stepdad was at the head, and he thought, well, why would he be there? Because the man's in spirit. Why would he be there? He didn't like me. I'm like, oh, honey, it's different on the other side.
It's way different. Yes.
It's way different. But yeah, God has saved me a few times, and my guys like you. And you had other experiences then as NDEs when you were younger. So what are some of the other things that had happened to you throughout your life thus far?
Well, I know that one time whenever I was pretty young, I was probably about 7. Me, my brother, and my cousin was are you talking about like a near-death experience or like experiences with spirit?
Near death, either one is fine. Whatever you feel like sharing. I'm so fast. I was like, oh, I love hearing about other people's stories.
So whenever I was real young, I remember me, my brother, and my cousin were swimming, and they were holding me under because, as kids do, they think it's funny.
Yes, they do.
But they had held me under for too long. And I could not breathe. And I remember trying to take a breath, but it was like I was breathing the water. It's to me, even as an adult now, thinking back on it, it's like, okay, that's crazy. but because you can't breathe water. But
Yeah.
I was, and it was, I was able, I like punched them both in their privates so that they would let me go.
Right.
But
You
I
have
did,
to.
whenever I couldn't breathe or couldn't hold my breath no more, I took a big old breath, and it was like I was breathing the water. It wasn't,
Wow.
it's very, very wild, but I was able to stay alive, and to me, I know, okay, I know that I have angels watching over me. My stepmom told me of a time that I was riding a four-wheeler,
Mhm.
and I had accidentally throttled it too hard. And she said, I went up over this hill, this jump, and that my body was straight up and down. And she thought for sure I was going to be going over and into, underneath the four-wheeler, and I'd probably be dead. And she said, out of nowhere, she saw, it looked like somebody had reached up and grabbed you by your pants and put you back down on that four-wheeler. Yeah. And so that was one experience of mine that she had recounted to me, that really kind of stuck out in my mind, that, we do have angels watching over us, and that I do have a purpose. I know that I had been in a pretty bad situation whenever I was about 13. This girl I was with, she was a runaway. And she had wanted to go with these guys, and I told her, no, it's not safe. No, they're just going to give us a ride back to da 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 da. I said, no, they're not, but I could not leave her to be left by herself and go with those guys. So I did go with her, and lo and behold, no, they did not take us back to our house.
Yeah.
They drove us to another town. But that town they drove us to, they didn't know that I had family in that town. I grew up in that town. So, sometimes we are an angel ourselves to other people, because
Absolutely.
it was because of me on our way to that town saying, oh yeah, I know where I'm at. Oh yeah, my aunt and so lives right over there. Oh yeah, I used to, play right around the corner from here. And so it really threw those guys off.
Yeah.
And we ended up getting out of that situation. And I know it was because of what I felt in my spirit, and the fact that I think back on it now, and if I would have let her go by herself, it probably would have turned out so horribly bad.
Yes.
Because they did try to lock us in a room. They tried to, it was pretty bad. And I stood up to them. I've never had a problem with standing up to people.
Me either.
Even I find that, well, I think that's from trauma as a child. I watched my mom get beat and stuff. And I told myself, even as a 5-year-old child, I will never be that woman. I will
Yes.
never let somebody hurt me. And as I've grown older, I've been in abusive relationships, even though I said that would never be me. But I learned after those abusive relationships why I was in them. And ultimately, I was trying to save my mom as a young child.
Um,
So, because we do repeat patterns in our life,
yes.
especially if they're pre-programmed in us in our childhood.
Yeah.
And unless we really do the inner work to find that out, we will keep creating those issues and those problems and those type of situations, even though we don't want it. I didn't want to be with an abuser. I was with somebody who, he broke my collarbone and dislocated my shoulder. And he tried strangling me to the point where I lost consciousness. But right as things was going dark, I whispered, Jesus, please help me. And right then the cops actually busted through the back door, and he had to let me go. So even within just instance, or like instantaneously, our words can bring the help of angels, of that help that we need. But we have to ask. A lot of people think that it's just, craziness or woo stuff, and it's not.
It's not.
Our beliefs and what we know really does influence the whole world around us. I'm really into frequencies, really into stuff like that, energy patterns and energy work. And it's really amazing how that works in our physical reality.
Yeah, it's incredible. I don't think a lot of people realize that. And, different, especially with things that are going on right now in the world with, vaccines and all that stuff. I don't want to go down that road, but it's amazing to me how many people, there's a reason for it.
Right.
There
Right.
is. I know I'm not supposed to get it because I know what will happen to me if I do. But
Right.
everyone, it's such a division right now, and their beliefs, so their spiritual beliefs, amaze me. God says this, but they all are so convicted in so hold their convictions that God is this. It's this way, or no other way. And I'm like, I'm glad your Bible's good for you, but this is my belief
Right.
because
Right.
I have seen him. I have experiences. And
Right.
as those of us that have had connections with angels and have been guided and listening since childhood, and then you have a person going, that's not what, and you're like, you're not even worth arguing. Good luck when you get to heaven. I'll be like,
I'll
I
pray for
told you
you.
so.
Yeah, I'll pray for you because that's all I can do. I've learned, I used to be very argumentative with people.
It's not worth it.
It's not worth it because it damages our own energy field, and it makes it harder for us to connect to spirit if we're being drugged down to that level of arguing with other people. This life, it is about free will. You are free to believe and choose and do whatever you think is right, but you're not free to impose that on other people. I've always thought, you can't put God in a box. A lot of people want to put God in this neat little box.
Yes.
This is how it is, and this is what he wants, and this is what he says, and da 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 da. But whenever you've actually experienced his love yourself, you realize that God is everything. God is love. God honors your choice to choose what you want, because that's what this life is about. For me personally, and my pre-birth memories of planning my life, you know what I mean? I do believe we planned this life. We didn't just come here and started existing here.
No.
We're not in just a body with a soul. We're a soul with a body. We chose, and even the lives that have trauma and abuse, and people say, there's no way I would have chose this for myself. Well,
you did.
If you did the inner work, you would see why you did and how it's supposed to help your soul grow. And, to me, it's like, I chose to come here to do a certain thing, and of my own free will to choose to believe what I believe or love the way I love, and not be influenced by what the world says,
So would you say with that as well, because you obviously work with people that are on this path and struggling, when you came back, did they give you anything specific that they wanted you to work on or work with people in a specific way?
Follow my dreams. It was actually a feeling of keep going. You haven't, because I hadn't experienced something or some things. I hadn't done my mission yet. I'm supposed to help a lot more people. There's a lot more that I was supposed and destined to do and had planned to do, that I had not been able to do yet. And a lot of it was because of the clouding of my traumas and where I was at in my mindset before my near-death experience. And so, like I had said, before my experience, I was diagnosed with CPTSD. I had been working on healing that in many different ways and avenues and modalities. But my near-death experiences was like a fast track train to that. I was able to release and let go of so much of those traumas that coming back, I felt free. I felt free to be who I was and to shine. I felt shiny. I felt like I was clean. I felt like I was given a clean slate to keep going because I had a pure heart. And ever since then, it seems like I keep coming into contact with people that need what I have or need my experience, my knowledge. And without even really trying, sometimes I feel like instantly connected to them. And I tell them, okay, well, this is my experience. This is what I've went through. And from my experience, this is how I feel about your situation. And they're like, you could see light bulbs coming on above their heads. And they're like, oh my gosh, Kristin, you're so right. And, I've given some counseling to some people that have made some life changes after what I've said. And now I talk to them, they're like, I'm so glad I met you. I'm so glad that I stopped this relationship and I went for this job and I stopped letting my doubts, stop me. And I'm like, that's exactly what we're supposed to do. A lot of times we let those doubts and those fears control our choices. And then we're not living in full authenticity. We're not living to our fullest potential. And, I've been around a lot of narcissistic people, and the fact of trying to love somebody or have love for people that aren't really lovable is a very big point in this journey of mine. And it's not really that you have to be okay with what they're doing or let them hurt you or anything like that, but you have to stay within your own power and still have love within yourself and not let them put those bricks on you of, okay, now I don't like life. Oh, now I don't, well, this person does this. It's like, okay, we got to get away from that mindset and live in love. My prayer each day, how we were talking about the day, like daily type prayer, is to fill me with that love and light and let me bring honor and glory to whatever,
I
and
love that.
instantly I feel like popped off again. I'm topped off. I'm ready to go,
Isn't that nice? My cup floweth over.
Yes. And I influence people that I'm not even trying to influence. They're like, I could feel it whenever I'm near you. And I'm like, that's God. I'm sorry. That's because of what I've went through. And
the angels are incredible. And when you're asking, when you said that when you were had the experience with the ex-boyfriend and the cops came in, when you had said that little prayer, I find that because I deal with chronic pain, sometimes when it's so unbearable, I'll be like, Archangel Michael, I have to call him 3 times. It's kind of like Beetlejuice, and same with God. It's like 3 times. They know I'm serious. They show right up, but I have to literally, and they always let me know, but I'm very protected, as you are. A lot of us are. And I think it's really about really understanding to tap in that guidance, kind of like when you're going down the road and all of a sudden you're like, I need to make a left right now, and you avoid the accident. That's been something that has been huge with me since I was very young. I know I've saved a bunch of people growing up, kind of like you with your friend, that because of those, we saved not only my life, but their life. And I would have it, and I don't know if you did, but it felt like someone's kicking me in the gut to where I'm so doubled over in pain, that gut intuition, when I'm not listening to it, they will take me down to Chinatown real quick. And I'm just like, and I know, and then they're like, that'll make everybody stop. When I'm in the fetal position and I'm in that much pain, everyone's okay, we're not going. And then it's like, oh God, I feel much better. And they're like, are you faking? It's like, no, I'm not actually, but you're no longer in danger. So we're good. Let's go,
Right.
So it's very as true. An adult, it's funny. Yeah.
I think crazy. More people need to connect with themselves on that level. That's what a lot of people are missing. I know, like I said, before my experience, I used to kind of fight that feeling unless it was so strong and so hard that I couldn't fight against it. But even those little whispers sometimes of like different things or whatever, I would be like, okay, no, it's just my imagination. No. And that would lead me down the wrong road every single time. Create more problems than if I just listened to myself, listen to my guides, listen to my intuition. And like I said, after my experience, that has become so strong for me that it's like, I don't even think to discount it. I follow those promptings. I follow those promptings every single time I hear it. And the more you follow those promptings and listen, the more they will give them to you. The more you will be blessed with those type of experiences, knowing that this is real. And, a lot of people do think that there's nothing after death. It's just nothing. You go to sleep. And this is why I love talking about this, is because no, it's not true. If more people, I'm not even like trying to preach God or Jesus or
No,
nothing, but people need to realize that this life is not all there is. There
no,
is something on the other side. And
this
when
is
you get
school.
there, yes, yes, very
This is
true.
school. Do you feel sometimes, the movie, I think it was The Matrix, where you're watching this video and it's of the life, but you don't know which one's really your life. And I tell my husband, I go, what's that movie called? Because I don't really watch TV and movies very often, because I've found that Spirit loves to show me things that I've seen
Right.
on TV. So I really limit this. And my friends laugh because I did an interview recently with a friend, and he's an American spiritualist and medium. And he's like, I go, so when am I going to have that big poof awakening? And he started laughing because you already have it, but you won't let them show you anything scary. He goes, by the way,
I
that's going
don't
to change
either.
soon.
I don't know.
And he
Me
goes,
neither.
but that day's a coming. And I'm like, crap, And I was like, I really don't want to see all that stuff. And of course, they show me sort of a show on the other night. And of course, it was, objects and things moving around and ghosts and stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, no, that's just creepy for me. I really enjoy working with the angels and my guides and God, and being in the presence of that white light and doing that peaceful work. I don't
That's
really
right.
care to be involved in the other side of it, because
Right.
I'm sure it's there and I know it's there, but I've always felt very connected to God, even though I didn't go to church, wasn't raised in a Christian, home or anything, but I've always known and felt that, Christ conscious is 33. It's just a knowing for me.
Love that.
Always knowing things, since I was little. And for me, I'm just like, I told my husband, we've been married 32 years. And I said, and you go to church, and this is probably 25 years. So he's like, okay, whatever. And then I go for a little bit and get what I needed, and then okay, I'm back to myself, and then oh nope, gotta go back to church and go back. And so it's kind of like the analogy of those people in the flood, and they're like, nope, the boat comes, God's gonna save us, and then finally they get to heaven because they drown. They're like, where were you? He goes, well, who do you think sent the boat 3 times? It's like, yeah, that's who did it. So there's a lot of us angels definitely that walk among us. What are you now doing? Because obviously you see a lot of things, you can sense a lot of things. Do you connect and talk with people who've crossed over to give messages, or do you do psychic work?
No, not right now. Ever since after I came back and I was so flooded with so many like things, and I prayed and I asked God to stop that, because I couldn't handle it. It was too much. If it came in just one channel and I could hear it that way, that would be okay. But my goal and what my mission is to help the souls that are living. I can feel when somebody needs my help that's living. You know what I mean? The ones that have crossed over, the one thing I can say about people that have crossed over, my stepmom passed away. She raised me. She passed away 11 years ago, and of cancer. And I felt so lost without her. After my near-death experience, I actually know that she's with me. She had told me, you were my best friend. And I know that she's right here with me. I know she's around me. I no longer, and like sometimes I will get songs pop in my head that I'm like, okay, I know that's you. I know that's you telling me that you're here with me, because it's songs from my childhood that we would listen to together, and like Fleetwood Mac, old songs, stuff like that. And it's like, those were only things that me and her shared. And so she would be the only person that actually kind of contacts me. Her and my grandma, who just recently passed away as well. She will send me signs as well. But as far as like strangers and stuff like that, no, because I asked God to stop that, because I couldn't focus on my life here and focus on my child whenever I was being bombarded by spirits from the other side, asking for my help or trying to tell me things and this and that. Yeah.
And with that too, when your children are older, you'll be doing the work. I guarantee it. You will. It's just, but like you said, time is so different here as there for them, as on the other side.
There
You
is no
take
time.
your time. There is none. So when
There's
you're
none.
ready and the kids are grown, it's going to show up
Right.
like that because there is no time over there. So for them,
Right.
it's like, okay, when you're ready, we know what you got going on. And as soon as that's done, here we go. And that's kind
Yeah.
of
Whenever that's God's will to have me help in
Mhm.
that sort of way. Like I said, I did receive a blessing from my church in the
Yes.
meantime, right afterwards. And that actually helped close off a lot of that as well.
Good.
And it took a lot of fervent prayer to God to help that stop.
Mhm.
Um, but I am very involved in my church now, and
Good.
I don't preach religion. I really don't, because to me, God created everything.
Yes.
So if you find him within yourself, wherever you are, if
He
you believe
is.
in there, he is. I
Yes.
don't care what religion you really,
Yeah.
subscribe to. It all depends on what you believe. And so for me, but I love my church because they have this spiritual viewpoint of things.
Mhm.
Like, we do work on behalf of our dead ancestors, you
Yes.
know, and stuff like that. So I feel like God kind of put me here so
Mhm.
that I could still do work for those on the other side, but not being bombarded in the physical with that. He still gave me an avenue of being like,
Yes.
okay, well, you can still help me out on, or help these people out on this, but we're going to
Exactly.
do it in a more mainstream way so that you're not so bombarded by it, because
Yeah.
God doesn't want us to feel that way either,
No, he doesn't.
and
God's very, a lot of people, oh, God, because when I was young, the church was God condemns this and this. I don't
right.
believe that. God
No.
is loving, God is all
Yep.
empowering, and he watches and holds us in comfort for the life reviews. So I know for a fact that he's not all those things that a lot of churches. I too
Right.
belong to a spiritualistic church. Mine had to shut though, but they still do stuff online. I went to a revival church recently with my sister because of just the whole COVID crap. And they said, some of their beliefs, I'm sitting there going, I just can't jive with it. She's like, why not? It's in the Bible. And I was like, because I have a personal relationship with God. And
Right.
I know for a fact that that is not true. I said,
Right.
God does
Right.
not judge anything, just like those that get vaccinated or they don't. God is going to hold you in compassion for the
Right.
choice you had to make. It's not the choice for me. I'll probably lose my job. That's probably why Spirit goes, oh, well, guess what? Your career's changing. So we're going to shove you
Yeah.
into interviewing
Yeah. We'll
everybody.
just push
Put
you
it
over
out there.
here. Here we go. We'll open this door for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the door's been open for a while, but they're
Right.
now thrusting me in more because I feel that probably next week, I feel the floor going on one side and I'm on this side. I'm like, ah, crap, But I tell my husband, and he's worried, because we've worked hard for everything we have. And it's like, we don't want to go backwards again. And I'm
Right.
sitting there going, no, we're going to be fine. I know we're fine. And he's just not, doesn't have the faith that I have. He should know after 32 years that when I tell him something and I actually know, because I know that he's a little more trusting of that, I got fun stories about that too, manifesting and stuff. But I want to thank you so much for your time today. I know you have a son to pick up from school, so I'm going to stop our recording right now, but I'm just so grateful. I look forward to hopefully meeting with you in the future and sharing some more great stories, because I know that you've got such a beautiful and fulfilling life ahead of you. It's going to be exciting to see it unfold. So I hope we're friends on Facebook so I can kind of watch some of that. So I'm going to
Yes,
stop.
I could definitely friend request you. And I want to say thank you as well for giving me the opportunity to share my story. Like I said, this is my first time, so I really, really appreciate it. And
I'm
even though I
thank you.
share a lot on the near death experiences group,
Mhm.
in typing, it's different whenever we actually speak about it. And I
Yes.
am very grateful for this opportunity, and I thank you very much.
Welcome.